Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book Dicks I've Met Online, exploring self-discovery through uncomfortable experiences. None other than Miss Bren Marrick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today.
Welcome, Miss Bren of Book 101 Review. Can you please introduce you more by yourself that I miss?
Sure. The way I would reflect myself is I'm that neighbor of yours. I'm a friend at the high school, at the PTA. I'm the person you see at the shopping store. I'm just somebody that's out there that you see every day. So, as far as my background in writing, this is my first book that I've written. And really, it's just a reflection of what happened to me, an episode in my life that I felt I needed to share.
Miss Bren, your audio is disconnected.
I'm sorry, you're not hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Miss Bren, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And here on Book 101 Review, we celebrate you. We salute you being a debut author. So today, let's talk about your book itself, Dicks I've Met Online. The book is called, well, as I said, the title is designed to get attention. Do people misunderstand the book because of the title? If so, what do they assume versus what is the book actually about?
Yeah, it is an attention getter. I think
Miss
a lot
Bren,
of
I
folks,
cannot
when they
hear you
first see
now.
it, they're like, what is this all about? Why, is it pornographic? Is it this?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I came up with the title, I loved it. That was like the thing I loved about it, because I think it's a play on words. It's kind of like, dicks. Yeah, those are, the men I met online, and dicks from a standpoint of kind of the jerks I met online. And dicks from the standpoint of, a lot of the stories where people talk about all the dick pictures that they get. So it has a lot of meanings within that title. But really, like, you said, it is really an attention getter. And what it is more about is what I learned about myself during this time in my life.
Miss Brand, some readers might see the title assume it's revenge story of a rant. How would you say to someone who almost didn't pick it up because of that assumption? What would they miss if they walk away?
The thing is there's a lot of humor in the story. There's a lot of things that, I kind of make fun of myself, the world, the people I've met and stuff like that. So, if they pass up on it, fine. I think what I find is that, it does capture attention and people take a little peek.
Miss Brannick.
And that's what I'm hoping. But I think they'll find a lot of kind of, reflection, kind of true reflection of how I felt, what I saw, what I dealt with, and all that.
Ms. Brand, your audio is come and go. So can you stick to one position so that it will come out nicely?
I'm sorry about that.
No worries. You said you didn't set out to tell the story like this. You set out to tell the truth. There's a moment when you almost choose a safer, more marketable title, and what made you stick with this one?
Well, the thing is, at the beginning, this was my life, my story. It wasn't something that I necessarily was going to share. What I found is when I started sharing my story with folks that were close to me, there was a kind of camaraderie, kind of I understand where you were going, and hey, I have this and that going on in my life. And when I mentioned the title, I'll tell you, if you look at the acronym, the DEMO, I've gotten a lot of my friends who kind of start chanting DEMO. It's kind of got a, once you start explaining and talking about it, it's got some kind of movement behind it, more than just what the words are on the title.
Well said, Ms. Bren. You've always ready to answer this question. What inspired you to write Dicks I've Met Online? Give me the honest answer, not the polished pitch, but real moment or question that started it all.
Well, what I would say is when I was all the things that occurred, I actually wrote down. I mean, it was kind of, if you have a diary, a journal, whatever, it was my way of dealing with the thoughts that I had. So I just wrote it down. And like I said, when I started talking with folks, it's really surprising how many people didn't necessarily judge me. I mean, I would say some of that would have been things that I was concerned about, that, am I going to be judged about what I did? What are people going to say? But what I found is that there was really a lot of support and similar questions and concerns and stories. And people inspired me to say, hey, share your story. We want to hear more about it.
You said your life has been shaped more by habit than choice. What's the difference between life shaped by habit and life shaped by choice? And when did you first realize you were living the first one?
Well, you know what? It's you get so busy with life. You get married, you buy a house, you have children, and then everything just becomes by rote. You get up, you do your job, you take the kids, you go to the grocery store, and it's just kind of day in, day out. Things just happen, and sometimes the way you feel or the things you really want to do, you kind of put on the back burner because, this is your life. You just have to do it. You kind of, I have responsibilities. I need, I have other people who are depending on me, and you just kind of go day in and day out. And then suddenly, there's that one day where you take a step back and you go, is this what I want to be doing for the next 20 years or more? Is this really, it's kind of that, story you always hear, are you going to look back at your life and say, I should have done this, or, this is the way, I'm really happy the way, things, were done and the choices I made.
You start paying attention to what you wanted, what you avoided, and what you kept explaining away. What is something you were explaining away for years that writing the book finally forced you to stop explaining, Ms. Bren?
I would say a big thing is doing stuff for myself. I was always putting everyone else first. And, when it came to things for me, I'd say, I'll get to it. I'll do it next month, next year, when the time is right, when the kids are grown, when, it was always, I'll get to it. But, hey, I really need to take care of my family, make sure, they're being taken care of and doing the things. So, that I would say is, where sometimes you put yourself on the back burner because of others. Not that I would necessarily say those were wrong things to do, but you need to put yourself there too. You can't put yourself aside. You have to put yourself as one of those priorities too.
So, Ms. Duran, you're always ready to answer this question. What was the most uncomfortable part of being honest with yourself while writing this book? What is the chapter or paragraph you wrote, deleted, rewrote, and almost cut entirely?
Oh, I'm just to kind of be honest about it. I actually had my daughter and ex-husband read the book um, before I published it because I wanted to get their reaction, and I didn't want to kind of put them on the spot to hear things without at least having some say so. And I'll tell you, they didn't change a word. They were very supportive of everything I said. And my daughter even said to me, she said, Ma, I didn't even realize, all the things that were happening. I was so busy, with my teen life and all the things I had to worry about. I didn't really see these things happening. Um, uh, I would say, I've always been a private person. So sometimes telling about some of the sexual experiences, and not that I went into any detail, but to kind of admit that I did have sexual experiences with other men while I was still married was something that wasn't comfortable necessarily. And that I put it out there for people to read. And that was a lot of it. It's kind of, when I had people read it and get back to me, I was kind of waiting for them to say, oh, I can't believe you did that. Or, why'd you do that? And no one said that. Everybody was really, kind of saying, hey, I understood. I had that too and all that. So I would say that was probably where I got the most angst while writing.
Well said, Ms. Bren. What surprised you most about what you were willing to say on the page versus what you're willing to say out loud to another person?
It's easier to write than to say. I will say that. I mean,
True.
it's kind of, you can write and have someone read it and you kind of look in their eyes and, that. Um, I would say that I probably am still probably more reluctant to say the things that I've written. Um, yeah, I don't think I could have gone, some of the superficial stuff and some of the funny things that I did, I can, say out loud, but, some of the other things I think are still, personal, and it was kind of hard to write it down and put my book out there for people to read. So I still think there's still a separation between the two.
Certainly. You said the book is sometimes funny, sometimes uncomfortable. What is the relationship between humor and honesty? And can you have one without the other in a memoir like this?
Um, well, uncomfortable, I would say, in respect to, yeah, sometimes being honest is both funny and uncomfortable. So I guess the two would mix. Um, I would say the uncomfortable is where, kind of things hurt, where it really tugs at the heart is where, some of the uncomfortableness is in saying things. And perhaps you use humor to attack it, but sometimes the humor is just, taking a step back and looking at reality and the things that are out there and just, realizing that, all the things that you thought were, or didn't exist or were private, is just way out there when you start looking at the world and seeing how other people are. And I'll tell you, it was like a whole underground, it was all these people and all their stories and, things I never would have believed or thought that I would have been involved with.
Mm. So, Miss Bren, what does your book say about self awareness in everyday life? Not a big, dramatic moments of insight, but the small, quiet ones that actually change behavior.
I, I would say the biggest thing is, don't worry about what other people do or say or, think that you have to be like, be yourself, do what you want. Do the things that make you happy. Do the things that you feel are right. I think sometimes we get so caught up in what others may think or what others are doing that we, limit ourselves.
Hmm. Well said. Well said, Miss Brand. You said a book examines what relationships and personal choices reveal about self worth. What is something you learn about your self worth through writing that you had never been able to see before?
Well, I would say one of the things, and again, it's the dicks I've met along. It was kind of, I went on this, kind of other world dating apps thinking that I guess more the physical part of affection, love, desire were the things that mattered most. And it wasn't. It was, the really the true affection, the caring, just the soft touch, that someone that you mattered to someone was really, the thing that's most important.
Miss Brand, you focus on the moments that force us to stop avoiding ourselves. What is the moment from your own life that forced you to stop avoiding, and what happened when you finally turn around?
Um, again, it gets back to stopping the habits, just going day in, day out, and months, years go by, and you haven't done anything about it. It's really taking a chance with things, and sometimes it could be scary. Sometimes, like I said, it could be like, what you worry too much about what will someone say because you did something, and you really need to not care. You really need to do the things that are, important to you, because what may be important to you is not to someone else. So you shouldn't really, make those that hold you back from making choices.
Your work is shaped by midlife transition. What is something about midlife that no one warned you about, and what's something that surprised you in the best way?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last question. Can you repeat it?
Yes, your work is shaped by midlife transition. What is something about midlife that no one warned you about, and what is something that surprised you in the best way?
You know what? I'll tell you, I never really felt like it was midlife. You kind of say, is it midlife? Is that what it was? I mean, it's the age, but you know, uh, I don't know whether it was a midlife crisis or not. But maybe it's just, sometimes the wisdom and experience bring you to a point where you start reflecting on things. Um, maybe that's the midlife piece, where when you're young and, just starting out, everything is exciting and new and this and that. And, at a certain point in your life, you do start reflecting. You start saying, what are truly the things that you want. And if that's the midlife warning, I guess we'll call it that. But there was just a point in time where you just feel like, okay, I need to make some decisions.
Well, Ms. Brand, to wrap up our discussion for today, you're always ready to answer this question. What do you hope readers take away from this book? Not a lesson, but a feeling of permission slip they didn't have before reading it.
I would say one of the biggest things, even if people don't make any changes, is to understand that there are other folks who may have these feelings or thoughts or, choices or things that are happening in their life, and they're not alone. I was, I went from not talking to anyone to writing a book. I would say that, if there are folks in your life to talk to, nothing is, should feel too far off that you can't find someone you can confide in or share. There are times I wish I had someone, perhaps. Maybe I would have taken things a different way. But, really to find someone that you can confide in. And I think that's what people, will get from this book. Yeah, there's funny things and different things and, things that maybe they've never heard of, that they'll learn from this book. But I think the thing deep down is, there are other people out there, and there are other people that you can talk to if there are things that are on your mind.
Well said, Miss Brand. Well said indeed. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your debut book, Dicks I Have Met Online?
Yeah, I'd love for folks to, check out the book. It's available on Amazon. Let me know what you think, and I'd really, love to hear the feedback. And if you do read the book, there's some suggestion of perhaps some additional publication coming out. I haven't planned the date yet, but there's more to come.
Definitely more to come. So, Miss Brand, I have one more question before I will let you go. What would you say to someone who's recognized themselves in your story? They see their own patterns, their own excuses, their own uncomfortable truth. What do you want them to know, and what would gently invite them to consider?
I would say the first thing is not necessarily do what I did. I would say that if someone said that I would ever do the things I did, I would say they were nuts. But what I would say is that if someone, like I said, if you feel that there is these types of questions, issues, really find someone who you can confide in. I'll tell you, I've found, a whole team of people that I have been able to talk to and share some of the things that I had gone through and really find support. So whatever it is, there are folks out there that you can talk to just kind of bounce things off of so that you're not alone.
You're not alone, people. Definitely, you're not alone. And Miss Bren, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. It's been great talking with you, Daniel.
Likewise, Miss Bren, and more to come, people. See you soon. So, Miss Bren, if you want to watch our live episode,